Hello everyone, I'm Bifta1322 and welcome to the 4th round of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship Season 4 held on platform-specific Blaine County circuits. As we see the start for each race, you can see that we're in the off-roads class for this round, with the GT1 drivers in the Bifta, GT2 drivers in the Dubsta 6x6 and GT3 drivers in the Rusty Rebel. For all the information you need about this championship, check the link in the first line of the description. So we're back on a Blaine County circuit. There's actually 3 Blaine County circuits throughout the course of this championship, 2 hill circuits, 2 airport circuits and 3 city circuits. So each time we're having a different experience. Obviously all the circuits are different, 10 unique circuits as well, with 5 of my circuits that are traditionally in the Multi-Class Endurance Championship, and then 5 community created circuits as well. This is obviously one of those. And Blaine County circuits are very different to, hill circuits, which are in turn very different to city circuits. But in terms of the start of the race and how the races went in each class, Ron Racing was starting on pole position. So Ron Racing is my team. As you can see in the top left, we had Murphos starting in first place. He's got the first 3 wins in the championship so far in the first 3 rounds, and he goes off from first place, gets into the lead and basically doesn't look back. Now the same is true in GT3. So Drum Balls, who both Murphos and Drum Balls are my teammates in the Ron Racing team, they both do exactly the same thing. Drum Balls gets ahead at the start from the GT3 field and doesn't look back, puts in the lap times and gets away and wins the race. And that was my plan as well. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I'd been practicing for the GT2 class. Obviously that's what I'm racing in. But it didn't quite go to plan for me. And this round was certainly the most disappointing round for me overall. And it was by no means my worst result of the entire season. But it was one of those rounds where these are the kind of things that will cost you championships. And I was so dejected by the end of this round, and this video is going to obviously tell the story of that. So there isn't too much of a story to tell for GT1 and GT3. An interesting point is that Drum Balls won from Shady Fruit in GT3, and Apex Whiteout came in 3rd place, and that was his best result of the season. Mr. Boxman was in 2nd place with Oracle in 3rd for GT1, so he matched his best result in round 1 of the 2nd place there as well. But yeah, in general the GT1 and GT3 battles, at least for the lead, there's not an awful lot to say about that. When it comes to the GT2 battle, that was a much more interesting race with a lot of different stuff going on, and in the end it came down to pretty much a straight fight between Imarogco and Mike BWFC. So these are 2 guys who've been at the front of the pack in all the races so far really. Mike had a bad first race, but beyond that, Imarogco has been up there, hasn't managed to get a win yet. Mike obviously got a win in round 2. And both of these are fighting for the lead. Nothing could really separate them. They were both jostling for position all the way through the race, separated by no more than a few seconds at any one moment. Even when pit stop strategies came into force, obviously, as you'll see here, Mike will go for his pit stop early. Tried to put in a good lap. This is what he's thinking at the time. He wants to get a good lap in to be able to overhaul Imarogco as he comes out of the pits, so he can't react. But by the time Imarogco comes out, they resume in exactly the same position as they were when they started. They just perfectly matched in terms of lap times, could not be separated, and they were both kind of, you could say, deserving winners because they were just so close together on pace. But ultimately Mike is the one who gets the job done by getting an overtake done in the Sandy Shores section of the track. Just basically takes advantage of they're, like I said, they're having this battle all the time. They're consistently overtaking. It's quite difficult to overtake with Dubsta 6x6s on a track like this. Obviously, as you might imagine, they're big vehicles and there's not a lot of overtaking opportunities, but Imarogco just hits the barrier a little bit, and Mike capitalizes on that, gets the overtake done, and ultimately goes on to win the race with Imarogco in 2nd. But that's not how I envisaged the race to go. I was starting on pole position, as you're seeing here. This is where I started, and I wanted the race to go exactly the same way that it went for my teammates for Merfoss and Trombols in GT1 and GT3. Just get a good start and drive away, and that's what I did. At this point everything was going well. This is exactly what I planned to do, get in first corner first and drive away. But then I missed my braking point a little bit coming into that corner there, and I see Amarocco right behind me, and then I mess up a little bit in this corner and hit the wall, and then at this point I kind of just lost it. I capitulated completely. The pressure was way too much that I put on myself to win this race, and because I hadn't done those first few corners perfectly, I immediately thought, well, this isn't going to plan. This isn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to just be able to drive away at the front, and ultimately it ends up in a point where I completely get a corner wrong, and you could say that the contact was unlucky here for it to affect me that much, and I didn't. I could have just grazed off the barrier, but either way, I choked it. I was in the lead. Even though I'd had not a good first lap, I was still in the lead. I knew that it was difficult to overtake. I started in pole position, and I've messed it up, and I couldn't believe it at the time. And after the race, I was even more dejected by this. As we know at this point, I don't end up being able to go on and win this race. That was Mike, and Amarocco came in second. So I was just so dejected, and it was kind of mistake after mistake after mistake for me in this race, despite the fact that I was quick, and I actually had the best lap time for the entire GT2 field, and I felt confident. I'd put in a lot of practice in this vehicle. I liked the Dubsta 6x6. I liked the track. I was feeling good. I was feeling confident. I felt like I knew what I was doing, and as you can see here, I have during the course of the race managed to catch up to Mike. I'm not too far behind him there as I come in for my first pit stop. So I had the underlying pace, but I kept making mistakes, and that was what was so frustrating about it, because I had the pace. I was the quickest. Really, all things considered, I kept catching up to people. I had the best lap. I was the quickest guy in this race, but I kept making mistakes. And for me to have started in pole position, and obviously during the course of this season everybody starts in every single position once, so this was my only time, and the Ron Racing team's only time of starting in pole position. For me to have started in pole position and have the quickest car, essentially, be the quickest during the race, and not get the win from that was really disappointing. Ultimately, as you'll see, I'm able to fight my way back through the pack. My first pit stop was a badly timed one, really, because I ended up back behind JWT Jack there, and I lost time getting back through him, so then that put me behind again. And as you'll see throughout the course of the highlights, I'll still make more mistakes later on in the race, and it was so frustrating, and I was so dejected, because I knew that given how close everyone had been in the GT2 field in terms of lap times in just the last race in round 3, it was incredible how close our best laps were. I knew that these were the kind of races that I needed to be winning. If I'm the quickest guy and I'm starting on pole position, I should be winning this race, and because I hadn't, I was so disappointed in myself. This was a kind of a key moment here, because me getting held up behind Jack after my first pit stop meant that I wasn't able to overhaul Mike. As you saw, he came out in the pits ahead of me, and I probably would have been able to do that because, like I said, I have the pace. And then in a sort of desperate attempt for an overtake, I tried to go down the inside of JB Carfreak here, which was never on. I lose a place to Dr. Peppers. It was just a badly executed and badly timed and badly judged move, really, there. And that came from the frustration of the situation that I was in. I felt like I should be at the front driving away from people. I felt like, even after the mistake, that I should have been able to overhaul Mike during that section and come out ahead of him, which would have meant I would have come out ahead of JB Carfreak as well. And ultimately, since Mike went on to win the race, I was still, even in the first half of the race, despite my early mistakes, I was still in a position where I could have gotten the win. But again, it was just mistake after mistake after mistake, and what ended up happening is my disappointment and my feeling of I should be further up the grid than what I am ultimately led me to make more mistakes. That's how it works. I made one small mistake on one corner on the first lap that led to me feeling under pressure. Then I made another mistake that made me lose positions. Then because of that, I made more mistakes because I was trying too hard to get back the positions that I felt I should never have lost. So it was just, it was one of those races, and ultimately I had a reasonably spirited comeback during the race. I was quite far down the order. I had issues. Again, as you can see here, making another mistake after I came into the pits earlier than Dr. Peppers, and when he came in for his pit stop, I'd gotten past him. So, like I said, I have the underlying pace. You can see it. I keep being able to catch up to people, past people, whether it's in the pit stops or elsewhere. And I saw this as well, seeing this in the race, that I'm consistently catching up to people as well. It's so, it's so annoying, because I'm even seeing close to the end of the race, you can see in the distance there, that's Imarodko and Mike battling over the lead. Considering how far behind I was at certain parts of this race, coming onto the final lap here, I'm not that far behind. I can see them visually in the distance, and throughout the sort of last half hour of the race, once I'd gotten back up into that third place, I saw myself continually catching them. Every single lap I was getting closer and closer to them, and it kept it in my mind of what could have been if I just hadn't have made that mistake once I got up into third, if I hadn't have made that mistake at the start of the race, if I hadn't have gone for that overtake on JB Car Freak and messed it up. All these little things just constantly going around in my mind during the race and after the race as well, and this was a very, very difficult one to sort of get over, because I just felt so disheartened with my own performance that I should have done so much better. In the end, getting a third place is still a good result with the best lap of the race, but it's amazing how you can be so unhappy with a third place in comparison to how I was in, say, round 2, where I was happy to get the third place because I just wasn't on the pace in general, whereas you get a third place here and you're unhappy with it because you feel like you could have done so much better. So yeah, Mike had a great performance to win the race, Amarokko had a great performance to finish in second, and ultimately I was just disappointed that I felt like I should have won the race, and I felt like I should have given, it was my fault that the Ron Racing team didn't get a maximum haul of points from that. No team has ever scored 45 points. Obviously the team points are the driver points together. So no team has ever scored 45 points. The most has ever been 42 points, which is gained from having 2 class winners. Obviously, say GT1 and GT3 win a class, and then someone finishes in second place and gets 12 points. No team has ever had one single round where all 3 of their drivers win the race, and I should have made Ron be the first team to do that. So that sort of piled on with that as well. And yeah, this was a very, very difficult one to get over, and at the time I just felt so dejected by it. But regardless, we now have to move on to the Xbox One race. So as you can see, we started in the top left with Xbox Pro. Starting on pole position, he's finished in second place in the first 3 rounds. We got Street Machine in second place here. Street Machine ends up finishing in third place, getting his best result of the season. And the interesting part about this race for GT1 was that King Blaze, who'd won the first 3 races of the championship, was very, very quick, but kept getting involved in incidents behind because he started further back, in the grid. So Xbox Pro had he was home free. He had a massive lead, and all he had to do was just bring it home. But he ended up getting penalised for a number of incidents where he took out backmarkers and didn't wait, and ultimately King Blaze caught up a lot of time by the end of the race. He had the best lap and just caught up so much time that it's when we were watching the live stream, it almost seemed like Xbox Pro was a little bit not lost his concentration a little bit, thought it was all won, was looking behind, was messing around, all that kind of stuff, and he allowed Blaze to catch up so much that when he got these penalties for taking people out, he got put back into second place. His penalties were enough that he lost the win. So although he had a great race and he won on the road, he got penalties for taking people out, not waiting for them, and ultimately lost the win. So King Blaze got it and has at this point won 4 from 4. So yeah, interesting from GT1. Trumpet Master got the win in GT2, underlining his really quick pace that he's shown in the first few rounds. And then a very, very interesting race in GT3, and ultimately an incredible finish between Dubsta Legend, as we're seeing his perspective here, and Matty H. Just incredible. Both of these hadn't had a win at this point during the course of the season. So both of these guys were going for their first win. This was the final part of the final lap, and this is how close they are. After an hour and a half of racing, this is how close it is for the win in GT3, and it's just amazing that we have that. Obviously you can see it's less than a second at the line. Matty H does end up keeping that win ahead of Dubsta Legend to get his first win of the season, but what an incredible finish to the race. And when we were watching this on the live stream as well, it was just spectacular to be able to witness this and watch this. Just incredible that after an hour and a half of racing, people can be so close together, and that kind of speaks volumes for the entirety of the GT3 class going forward. The championship is between so many different people win on Xbox One in GT3, and it was a really, really good championship, that, as we'll see as we go throughout the course of the season. So now the PC version of the race, again, all of these are on different circuits, but they're all kept with the same theme, Blaine County style circuits. A bit of a messy start for GT1, as we're seeing here, quite messy, let's say. There was quite a lot of incidents, quite a lot of crashes, and we're seeing it from a Vivo's perspective here. He ends up at the back of the grid after the first few corners after getting involved in that incident. As the GT1, the GT2s are starting, and Odan does another great performance and gets his third win of the season out of 4 races, and the only one that he didn't win was one that he didn't participate in. So Odan has had a great start to the season in GT2 on PC, gets another win here. And then in GT3, it's again, the GT3 championships always seem to be very, very close. They always seem to be very interesting, provide some of the best racing, some of the situations where the majority of people will be able to win a race, and just everybody's so close. Very similar to how GT2 is on PC this season. Anybody could win a race, really. And Hero has a really great performance. This is one of his best performances of the season, but ultimately he isn't able to hold off Benimi, who gets his 4th win, underlining his dominance in the GT3 class this season, his 4th win out of 4. But what is going to happen in this GT1 battle? And again, we have a really, really good race. Avivo manages to bring himself back from this really bad start. He's got some great pace, and he has a really good battle with Doom Penguin. So Doom Penguin is a previous GT1 champion for the MCEC on PC, and both of them just go hammer and tongs for a lot of the final part of the race, trying to get the win, trying to best each other. There's different pit stop strategies and all this kind of stuff, and in the end it kind of culminates into essentially one move that it always looked like, as we were watching this, Avivo didn't get the best lap of the race. That was to Zenvo, who finished in 3rd place, but he did have a better best lap than Doom. So it always felt like Avivo had the underlying pace, but just wasn't able to get it done for whatever reason. There was various mistakes or getting involved in incidents with slower vehicles and things like that. But this is where it all kicks off. This is where it all happens. And it was a really, really nice move that Avivo pulls here, honestly. Just slides it up the inside, block pass, and gets the job done, and is able to drive away Doom Penguin stays right on his back bumper, and they both come into the pits, and it's very, very close again, and they swap positions. But ultimately, that was the move that got Avivo the win for his third win of the season again. So yeah, great performances all round. The championships are really sort of starting to heat up. We're starting to see some people, get those higher points that are going to really serve them well and make them into championship contenders later on in the season. But apart from that, that is round 4 of the championship over. That is the full roundup, I guess you could say, of the main highlights. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know all your thoughts down below. We shall be having round 5 very shortly, and then the rest of them are all still to come as well in what is a very, very interesting championship throughout the course of the season. So thank you all for watching. I really, really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.